All right, obviously, extremely proud of our football team. Very hard-fought win, which is what we expected it to be. We had talked all week about how strong our culture was, even on the back of some of these losses to start the season, and that if we trusted in that, and if we continued to nurture that the results would start to come. And this game was a testament to that, because we knew it was going to be a game where persistence and being relentless was going to be the key. Virginia's got an outstanding defense, and that quarterback, you can't say enough about that guy and the plays that he makes. But that being said, what changed today is that the team that made the plays in the fourth quarter were the Miami Hurricanes. And the way that we went down the field twice, after not obviously moving the ball very well in the middle part of the game, to go down the field and score twice there in the fourth quarter, ultimately was telling in the victory. Defensively, the toughness of your defense, is defined by how you play in the red zone and goal line. That's simply it. Because the closer the ball is to the goal line, the more important it's got to be to you. And the way that we played, well, when they got down there close, to not let them score a touchdown with all the multiple times. I don't know how many snaps they had inside the 14-yard line, but it had to be almost double digits. And to not score any of those snaps when you're talking about a player of Perkins' ability, that's simply a mindset. So I was very, very proud of the way that they responded. And obviously for Turner Davidson to come in and to make the PATs and make that field goal in a very clutch time in the game there in the fourth quarter was a huge shot in the arm to our football team. So again, something that all three phases can be very proud of. Very happy locker room right now, as you could imagine, and now maybe a little bit of a momentum, and we can kick on for the rest of our season. With that, open up for questions.
Manny, can you take us through the process of deciding on Turner this week?
It really came down to warm-ups. We let it kind of go down to warm-ups, and he just had a better warm-up than Bubba, and that doesn't mean that's a permanent move or whatever, but we just felt like from a pure evaluating who was making the kicks that he was the guy.
Manny, what specifically did you do? I mean, it obviously was so noticeable. I mean, just the difference in how they played tonight compared to last week, making the stops in the red zone. Last week they didn't make any stops. I mean, it just looked so totally different. So what did you do?
I don't think there's no magic. You'd hope that last week was an outlier. That just wasn't us, But there's a lot of pride. There's a lot of pride in the guys that play on that defense. There's a lot of pride in that coaching staff. I thought they had our players very well prepared this week, and simply it was just a matter of just doing our job and trusting ourselves, and then gets back to that part about just being relentless, because that was the issue. Because there's a lot of good plays out there some of the throws we had unbelievable coverage, and some of the throws and catches that Perkins was making are things that we haven't seen in the last 3.5 years. It was high level stuff, but to be resilient like we were, I'd like to think that's more true who the real Miami is on defense than what we saw a week ago.
Manny, your offense, I think after the first drive, I think it was like 33 yards on 23 plays or something like that. When a group, frustration probably had to be setting in on some level. How did they snap out of it and come up with the two biggest drives at the two most crucial?
Well, we had talked, in the team talk at the hotel before we came to the stadium today, we talked about being persistent. Virginia's a tough nut to crack on defense, and if you even think about their game 2 weeks ago against Notre Dame, that was a very tight game. There were some explosive turnovers that kind of created separation on the scoreboard, but even what Notre Dame was doing in the run game, that didn't really start to pop until the fourth quarter. So it was a game where time of possession would matter in snaps, which they had the edge on because they were better on third downs than what we were. But I think the neatest thing about our team this year is that we just don't panic. When things are going poorly, our guys, they get back out there and they go continue to fight again. And so I don't know that we were surprised to be in the position we were in. Now, that being said, we were making a lot of mistakes. We were missing assignments. We obviously had some shots down the field. We probably had about 3 or 4 touchdowns that were this close away. We had a couple of touchdowns that we got swept by the ankle that had a chance to score on a drive that became a field goal. So as always, there will be a lot to correct. And look, that's the whole thing we talked about right before the year. The execution is going to get better. But as long as the intangibles are there, as long as the fight and the attitude of never giving up and all that type of stuff, you can win with that, and that's what we did tonight.
Was there confusion with Amari when he stayed on the field after the target?
It's a peculiar thing. I think Amari was waiting for someone to take him off the field. He was just standing there, and they just wound the clock, and just one of those kind of odd things that I don't know if anyone's ever seen that before.
Hey, you talked about the way Nicosi played, just getting that touchdown at the end. I felt like it was really emotional moment for him.
It was, because what we talked about was, let's use Nicosi as a great example, right? The guy worked really, really hard from January all the way to August, right? Then he finds out he's not the starting quarterback. And it's so easy in this day and age to say, well, you throw your hands up in the air and say, I'm going to, pack my bags, or I'm going to stop working. And for him to not only stay, but to continue to persevere. So what last week we saw the new version of Nicosi. We saw how much he had improved. And there was almost some strange, karma deal, the fact that he got to start against Virginia, and then the fact that he gets to, score not the winning touchdown per se, but the, sort of the touchdown that iced it, or, somewhat like that. For him to do that, that just shows, man, like, you don't always get what you want when you want it, but if you continue to work hard, it comes, and that's a kind of a mature concept. It's hard when you're their age, but for him to battle like that, I think that's a great example for everyone on our football team.
I guess, Manny, when you go back and look at the tape of this one, third downs on both sides of the football, that's something obviously you're going to have to take a look at. How do you attack that offense?
Well, for our side of the ball, it's been a thing where we've been trying to improve on all year, and our third down offense today, again, like I said, let us down in some situations. On the other side of the ball, it was a combination of Perkins just keeping plays alive that, other quarterbacks would have been sacked, and then he made at least two throws on third down, like I said, that were just such high quality in the catch where I don't know I can tell the guy to cover any better. So sometimes you got to tip your hat to the other guys, but we made enough stops when it counted, and obviously the important ones were we made the third down stops in the red zone.
You mentioned, I think, a few times this year talking to players who maybe are frustrated about lack of playing time. Was that ever a conversation with Nicosi? Like, I think you talked about it specifically with Lingard recently, but with Nicosi, was there ever a point where maybe guys transferred? Was there ever a point where you kind of sat down, talked with him about why it would be good for him to stay?
No, I think Nicosi just, all you had to do was watch the guy on the sideline in the first half of the season when he wasn't playing, and watch his demeanor, his temperament. He's done nothing but just continue to improve, even when he was not the starter. So that's a good thing, because, again, who can predict what happens during a football season? And at quarterback, it's obvious, but, it could be another position where you have an injury and a guy fills in, and all of a sudden, here you go.
Many of the decision to start with Greg Rousseau, and obviously paid tremendous dividends. He had a monster game.
Yeah, Greg he's been coming and getting better every week, and getting more sound in his assignments in the run game. And so, he went in there. We still roll all of our guys, but Greg, we've been saying this since his first year, when his first spring when he mid-year enrolled, that we knew he had a big time future ahead of him, and what an awesome young man, and boy, it's fun to watch him out there, wreaking havoc.
Manny, your O-line, I'm sure it was aware of the stat that we were talking about. They've given up more sacks than anybody else. Virginia had just about more sacks than anyone else in the country. Did they get tired of hearing that over the course of the week?
I'd imagine so. But again, as we've said so many times, every sack does not go on the offensive line. What they're doing, and what Butch Barry's doing a great job of them, is just getting them better. Right? We got a starting point. You start. Week one. Really start the first day of training camp. And how do we get this group to be more connected? Continue to compete, continue to play hard. Virginia's got a heck of a test now, because there's not a play. There's about not a play during the game where somebody's not moving, blitzing, coming from somewhere, doing something. So we had a couple. Again, like I said, in the middle of the game, we sort of had some concentration errors. We had a couple of times when backs didn't pick up a blitzer, a free runner. That's going to make it look like the protection's poor. We had a screen that the back went the wrong way. Just some things like that. And again, that it's so easy just to harp it all on that position group, and that's usually not the case. Nothing's changed from when I sat here a week ago. So I've always said that Jaron Williams is our guy. We know we can move with Nicosi. We're still, the question we have right now when we get back there is, how is Jaron? And then the second part of the question is what I mentioned a week ago. How does Jaron respond to all of this? Because there's a locker room of guys that know that we can win with all of our quarterbacks, and I think that's where we see the offense and how those guys can function, just with what Dan Enos is calling.
Coach, how validating is it? You talk about coaching, you talk about change, looks and eyes, all of that. You get in a really tough situation last week, and then you're able, in a short week, to respond.
Right. Well, as we all know, you talk about culture, but we're in a results business. You got to win, and as I mentioned, in our small sample size, we were playing really hard, and we were playing together and all those type of things, but we weren't getting the wins, So for me, it's not so much validating for me; it's validating for the guys in the locker room that we're giving you everything. I mean, they look at you and they can't. I mean, of course, everybody can play better and everybody can execute better, but in terms of emptying the tank every week, they were doing that. They weren't getting the reward. And sort of walking that locker room today and seeing the guys that got the reward of the victory, and a team victory, you know what I mean, where everybody had a hand in it, is pretty awesome.
Manny, can you just tell us a little more about this kicker? Because we don't even know really where he came from and how he ended up with you guys.
I don't either. He just showed up there. He just ran on the field during pregame and started knocking some in. We said, "Hey, here we go." So, no, Turner, he's been with us for a little while now, and you know, and has been getting better and better, and sort of kind of moved into the number 2 spot, and kind of caught everybody's eyes because he was making, you know, when we do 1s and 2s on field goal, and he was not coming through there. He had a really good week, and so then when, like I said, when we got to the warm up today. He was without a doubt the better guy in the warm-up. So we said, hey, you know, the same thing you would do with the left guard or the wide receiver. He said, hey, you got to be the guy. And to his credit, he made them all. Okay, thank you all.